God is gracious. We've been protected. He's got a plan, and He's working it out. And now, let's go. We're in chapter 4 now, and I think 4 and 5 are they're kind of my favorites in the Old Testament, at least of the minor prophets. And there's some other really, really good places, but this one really jumps out at me. And let's start reading in chapter 4, and I'm going to read through verse 5, and we'll just take this all in. Think about, okay, we're getting ready to Judah is getting ready to be overrun by Babylon, and that's what Micah is prophesying about. But Micah jumps track a number of times, and the last days, remember I've always told you that the last days most generally is a reference to the tribulation period and beyond. And but we just kind of read over that thinking maybe that's the last days before Babylon comes, but I don't think so. So let's read this. But in the last days it shall come to pass that the mountain of the house of the Lord shall be established in the top of the mountains, and it shall be exalted above the hills, and people shall flow unto it. And many nations shall come and say, Come, and let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, and to the house of Jacob, and He will teach us of His ways, and we will walk in His paths. For the law shall go forth of Zion, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. And He shall judge among many people, and rebuke strong nations afar off, and they shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up a sword against nation, neither shall they learn war any more. But they shall sit every man under his vine and under his fig tree, and none shall make them afraid, for the mouth of the Lord of hosts hath spoken it. All people will walk every one in the name of his God, and we will walk in the name of the Lord our God forever and ever. There's a lot of stuff in there, but let's now go to Isaiah chapter 2.
Verse 3?
Starting with verse 1, I think. Starting with verse 2. And it shall come to pass in the last days, that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established in the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills. It's Isaiah 2, and starting at 2. And I'm not going to go too much farther. And all nations shall flow into it. Many people shall go and say, Come ye and let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob, and He will teach us His ways. It's a repeat. They're almost word for word. Now, the question is Isaiah, what's the word? Plagiarizing Micah, or is Micah plagiarizing Isaiah? In other words, is one taking the words that the other one wrote and writing them down?
Or is it God standing at one?
Or is it two men separated because they did live at the same time, the same period of time? My guess is that Isaiah spoke it and didn't write it down until later, and maybe Micah spoke it and it didn't get written down. So the possibility of collusion, I think, is still there, but it's remote.
What period of time you say this is?
This is about 100 years before captivity, about 680 to 700 to 680.
I mean, the tribulation. It's just the millennium.
You mean what period of time is being referred to? I think it's the millennium. Yeah. This is not current event. It's not even 100-year later event. It's not a 100-year prophecy. It's a 2,700-year prophecy. Something like that. Okay. All right. Well, let's open this up and see what kind of interesting things are here. Now, I think I've told you before. One of the things that allowed me to understand a lot of the Old Testament was the word mountain. And a lot of times it's referring to a kingdom. Okay? It's not a literal physical mountain. Now sometimes a mountain is a mountain. Okay? Don't misread me. But most of the time a mountain is referring to a kingdom. Yeah, I think we're going to read through this, and I think you'll see what I'm saying. In the last days, it shall come to pass that the mountain of the house of the Lord shall be established in the top of the mountains, and it shall be exalted above the hills, and people shall flow unto it. Now, the hills are little kingdoms, okay? And the mountains are big kingdoms. And this mountain is going to be a mountain that's in top of all the mountains. So it's going to be a kingdom over all kingdoms, over the world. Exactly. It shall be exalted. That means it be raised up above in importance, in power, control, everything. It's above the hills. And the people shall flow unto it. Well, what does that mean? It means they like it. You run away from things that you hate, and you don't. They like it, and we're going to keep going. And many nations shall come and say, "Come and let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, the kingdom of God, of the Lord, of Jesus, and to the house of the God of Jacob." Now, that's in Jerusalem, okay, and it's going to be there. And he will teach us his way. Well, that's what God's been trying to do forever, and we are just rebellious people. We want to do it our way. This is not such a bad program, and it really, God has given us the best rules for life, okay? When we deviate from those, guess what? It doesn't work out well. Kind of like eating catfish. He said, don't eat any fish that doesn't have scales. Oh, I love catfish. We get sidetracked. Okay. And teach us his ways. And what happens next? And we will walk in his paths. We won't have to have courts of law, because people want to do what God has told them to do. It flows naturally. We will walk in his paths, so we won't. We don't have to have traffic lights anymore. We don't have to have policemen to watch the people running the red light, because they'll stop at the red light and they'll go at the green. And we don't need total regulation. And in God's economy, you don't need all of these policemen watching that you have a fair balance, so that a pound of bananas is really a pound of bananas, and so forth. Okay.
also, in the millennium, there will be children born.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And they will just give lip service to Christ. They won't be actually dedicated to him. Because at the end, when Satan's released, there's going to be a huge rebellion.
Right. And that's who we are. We've always been.
Well, we say today, if we just had an environment, a perfect environment,
Right.
where we wouldn't have to be the way we are,
Right.
or we wouldn't be the way we are. That just be true.
Right.
We had one. We had Adam and Eve in
Yeah,
the Garden of Eden.
they rebuilt theirs. Yeah, that's when you do it again.
Richard, I know, Project. I don't want to tie sidetracked about what he said. I was always confused on that. Who will have these children?
People that
People that go through and the Jews will be there.
I mean, on so that I get through the tribulation.
Yes.
That's obvious.
Yes.
There'll be people saved during the tribulation.
Right. And there'll be people killed during the tribulation too for the testimony of the Lord. But they will come back as resurrected people in resurrected bodies, as Jesus is in a resurrected body right now, and he will come back in a resurrected body in the millennial kingdom.
Those who are
Okay.
elected. Oh,
Okay.
I don't. That's where it gets blurred to me.
Okay.
I'm wondering, is Jesus going back to what he looks like before, or does he have a new one though?
I can't answer because I don't know.
Well,
He,
seems famous.
I
don't know him as well.
I believe that he has a perfectly restored body, with the exception of the nail prints in his hands and the scar on his side. But as far as the lashings and the scourgings and the other injuries, are you going to speak to that?
Let's put it this way: he will not be a meek little lamb.
No, he won't be a meek lamb, and he will be wonderful to look at. But he will have those so that we will be reminded. He doesn't need to be reminded. Okay. Yeah, we'll get into. We'll go back at Revelation when we get done with I promise. When we get done with the minor prophets, we'll do that. And we're making good progress, and I think we started out with a commitment to this, and I think we need to finish that. But we bring that up again, and we will go there.
That's the problem. People see Jesus as a babe in a Christmas story, and that's as far as they ever get. They never get to the book of Revelation where he comes back.
That's a terrible book to read. There's bad things happen.
They won't read
I don't know how many people I've talked to that are supposedly going to churches that teach this, and they won't touch Revelation. They spend too much time in Revelation.
It's a
Your Bible,
God loves the
almost
the book of Revelation. I understand it. It's a blessing.
Yeah.
It's a blessing that comes with it.
You're going to do, dude. Not really.
I think we're for the law shall go forth of Zion, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. Zion and Jerusalem are the same place.
the house of God.
He's setting his kingdom up in Jerusalem. For he shall judge among many people, that's the whole world, and rebuke strong nations afar off, that is all the way around the world. You can only get halfway around the world. You understand that? Because once you get there, then you're less than halfway coming the other way. So, okay, that's kind of a minor point. But that's as far away as you can get. About 12,000 miles from Jerusalem, okay? And they shall beat, I love this, they shall beat their swords, that's implements of war, into plowshares, that's implements of growth and production and peace and health, food. That's why what we call the common weal is common help. And we also call it the commonweal, the commonwealth. We have a commonwealth state. We are common, and we are in one economy. We want to build up. That's God's plan: is to build up, to build, to construct, to go forward. Not to have war. War is destruction.
That I kind of think that when God created the heavens and the earth, He created the universe vast and infinite. There's no end to it and everything. If man hadn't sinned, he'd have spread out and populated this whole universe.
Yeah, except for the speed of light. Which is a real problem.
Well,
and who knows what infinities lie beyond our understanding. We have a microscopic view of the universe. We can only see a tiny portion, and it may not be that it's that big.
It says in a door opened in heaven.
Mm-hmm. Well, that is a okay. I'll visit that. There are a number of places in our Bible that it talks about that door into heaven. Today, science fiction writers would call it a portal. Okay, it's a power surging device, that and you're into a wormhole, but we have visual proof in the Bible of testimonies of people that have seen into that other dimension. I believe it's Ezekiel talked about he saw the heavens and the fire and the wheels and all that. I don't know what he's talking about, but it's pretty terrible.
You went up in the fiery chariot.
You went up in the fiery chariot. New Testament, the first martyr, Stephen, as he was being stoned, he looked and he saw Jesus standing in heaven. Now, I don't know how whoever wrote that story understood that, but somehow that was communicated, and we saw Jesus ascend into heaven into a cloud.
Well, even in the very beginning of the Old Testament, angels came back and forth, Satan came back and forth. There had to be some entry, some exit.
So, and I've said this for a number of years, there's more than 3 dimensions. And time, it's got to be 4 dimensions.
There's things going on that God hasn't informed us about. I don't think we would be able to understand it.
I think God has told us everything we need to know. Yeah, there's things that we have no way of understanding.
Elijah opened his servant's eyes.
Yes.
And he's seen the armies of heaven.
Now that was in real time, in real space, and he saw those angelic beings physically. Light bounced off of him, came back to his eye, and he saw that, perceived that as angelic beings. So yeah.
Oh, that right there.
That was Old Testament. I'll find it for you. I think it's.
They were second kings. They were surrounded by great armies, and Elijah showed his servant
right
the armies of heaven.
Right.
you'll look it up.
Yeah, I'll look it up.
All this stuff kind of like we've last few months, in a month, we have a lot of discussion with people with us. But
the thing that fascinates me is I have no doubt that there are entities, and we do have UFOs, and
They're being
getting the information they know about this.
they're being flown by.
He created everything, you know.
They're being flown by demons.
They have to be changed around. With the DNA put to change them so they can cope or live in certain situations. Or that's how I have to see it. I'm not saying God is hiding a lot of things from us.
Do you think all these people that see all this stuff are seeing things and think they're...
No.
I don't either. There's
too much proof that there's something with... And in some areas around the United States and in other countries, you know, where there's more of them. They're
hanging more around our missile sites, military, and they're
checking out
our ships at sea.
Yeah.
The things where they talk about scriptural things of another dimension. So where do you think these UFOs go when they vanish?
They just
go into this other dimension.
Yeah. Have you ever seen the mystery of Skinwalker Ranch?
I think
about aerospace. They was on it and studying it for years, and now this other guy, Brian Fugel, he's taking it over to study. And they fire these rockets up through this a place that's just weird. You can drop balls down from a helicopter, and they won't go straight down. They'll go off to the side a couple miles.
It's something in the ground as well as the sky.
Yeah. And there's something wrong. There's a portal. There's something wrong there.
Something right in Rotterdam.
Places all line up. There's more of them.
On a certain grid around the world.
Mm-hmm.
And where it leads to from these that are lined up here is Cuba.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think Cuba's been doing all this. You know, it's happening it's like simple. I hear also, it doesn't seem to make a difference to me. So if there is more than one dimension, God, all powerful, He can do whatever they up to, Sandy. It doesn't bother me.
It don't bother me at all.
I'm interested in it.
We're at the point where we are ready to experience, and probably already are, the grand deception. This is the great deception, and it's all going to play together. I mean, we can speculate how it's going to happen, but one scenario is the rapture takes place. How is the government going to explain that? They say, well, UFOs took them. So they gotta do. Yeah. What I'm saying is that we can't fathom all of this stuff because we don't understand the whole picture.
It says these people in the military, they get radar returns on these things, so they're a solid document. If they can get radar returns.
Until they go through the portal.
But how can they, from a standing stop, accelerate to tremendous speeds?
You can't.
No, not even a sonic boom.
No, it in our physics, in our physical world, it doesn't work. So there is a...
I'm more concerned about walking the path that I've got now here now. As far as the future of the world, there's some things right now that are things they've learned from studying these spaceships, and they have. And I think that maybe some countries have had a connection, and that we've learned new things to do and make from all that, and it's making a difference in our world. like they drill back into this mesa, is it?
Mm-hmm. They drilled into that mesa.
They drilled into that.
They hit
and
something.
they found pieces of metal, so pieces of metal, and it turned out to be like about the same kind of stuff that we coat
The space shuttle.
in the space program.
Then they drilled in again.
To keep them from burning up.
They moved over and drilled in again, and they got in a few hundred feet, and they hit something they couldn't penetrate. And
they went on top and tried to drill down.
They couldn't do that. And they drilled into it, and they drilled into it for an hour, and just kept trying to punch through it with four tons of pressure, and they couldn't get through.
Well, they probably just ain't found the doorway. That's probably hell.
Yeah, and they pulled the bit out, and it didn't even look like the bit had been used. It was just perfectly.
As long as they doesn't, they don't start packing up a lot of the salt or something.
Let's close this up with at least at the chapter verse 5. Thank you for your input. And we can visit those things again. Verse 4, but they shall sit every man under his vine and under his fig tree. That means everybody's going to have plenty. There's going to be all that you need to eat. You're not going to go hungry. And none shall make them afraid. There's not going to be any war. There's no burglars. There's no lions. There's no predators. For the mouth of the Lord of hosts. That's an interesting phrase. In the Old Testament, that's called Sabaoth. And it translates Lord of hosts or Lord of armies. Okay? The Lord of hosts has spoken it. For all people will walk, everyone, in the name of his God, and we will walk in the name of the Lord our God forever. Now that's a curious statement. I don't know. It almost implies that, and you can help me here and jump in, it almost implies that there are going to be other gods worshipped in the millennium. I really don't believe that's the case, but that's what I'm seeing right there.
I don't think Jesus would allow it.
I don't either. And we will walk in the name of the Lord our God forever and ever. Now, that implies that we have gone beyond the millennium, okay, forever and ever. And so we understand that plays out with 7 years of tribulation. The new kingdom is established, and that kingdom goes on for 1,000 years. It ends with rebellion and the defeat of the rebellious forces with Satan. Satan's cast in hell, and then we'll go right to the great white throne judgment, which there's no place else for us to be except where everybody else is, which is in the presence of God, and that's where everyone will be judged. Believers will be observers, is my opinion.
But not emotionally. But if they those that
right.
are continue to be lost, and we have the opportunity to speak to them about the good news. They feel that their blood will be on our hands.
We'll be there, and we guys will first proclaim never heard, you didn't know, and they'll point a finger at me, like, did you witness to this guy?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. We're going to have to leave that on the table because that's very confusing to me. For all people will walk everyone in the name of his God. And I've looked and tried to find an explanation for that. But my Bible in other places tells me that will be 1,000 years of perfection, of purity, of following. We just saw it here. Everything is wonderful. We don't have to have policemen. We don't have to have people that hunt lions and tigers and bears. We don't have to. We beat our swords in the plowshares. It's a time of peace, time of plenty, a time of the love of God. People sincerely, actually, finally, are saying, God, you are so great. And, thank you for the sunset. Thank you for the manna, which I don't know whether they ever did thank him for that.
Right.
They did complain. But my point being is this is the perfect time. And yet, the sin nature of man is genetic from our father Adam and our mother Eve. I think they're both to blame. So it's in us. That's the price. That's the price of free choice. Is that if you don't have free choice, if you can't rebel, then it's not a choice. You're a robot. Which kind of takes us into cyberspace, where we are today with artificial intelligence. What are they? If they're electronically, and if they are sentient beings, do they have a chance to rebel or what? We came into existence, and before the foundation of the world, Jesus it was decided that he would pay the price for our disobedience, for our rebellion, if you will.
Okay. And there's no free choice.
Right, and that's the story of the world since Adam and Eve. Is everyone has that choice to love God or rebel, and it's that simple. And that's we just talked about the Great White Throne Judgment. That's exactly what's going on there. Is here is the group that have chosen to love God and do His commandments, and all the rest have chosen not to love God. And by that choice, they have assigned themselves to that other place that we call hell, and it says death and hell, and how does it go? We're cast into the lake of fire. That's it, the lake of fire.
The thing is that every person is born, and they start their lives on their way to hell. We're all going to hell. At some point, we make the choice not to take that path, to take the path that God's given us, or been forgiven by God. Those who don't, keep going on that same path.
I prefer to believe that we're born as innocent. And until we make that choice to rebel, which can happen at 3, 4, 5, whatever, at a young age, until then, then I believe you're innocent of that crime, of that guilt. And How can a baby in the womb have caused them any sin? Okay, so
it's a result of sin, the baby.
Well, but that's not the baby's fault. Yeah.
Okay.
So we're kind of on the same page there, but I wanted to clarify that.
God breathed the spirit of life into Adam. Adam became a living soul. And when they sinned, that spirit of life was gone.
Mm-hmm.
Started dying.
My
Spiritually,
this is kind of weird, but my take on it is they had the Spirit of God in them, so they were shining as well. They were glowing. They were bright. God was bright. No one has ever seen the face of God because He is so bright. If you look at the sun, you can't see the details on the sun, and that's what brightness is. I think they were so bright that they couldn't even tell that they were naked. Okay? And when that thing took place, that brightness that disappeared, and we don't have any clothes on. We're naked.
getting that spirit back is to Jesus Christ.
Right. Exactly.
Spirit.
And we see that spirit more than once through the Old Testament. And
It doesn't form.
was it?
They were supposed to had a form, and you were able to see them all. All the spirits.
Oh.
In form. Spirits in form. Evil spirits see. That sounds like it is. He was given. See everything.
I have to think about that. It said God is a spirit, and yet He had brightness. So from that,
very bright, like you couldn't. I guess it was blind to
That's what happened to Moses when he looked upon God.
Yeah.
Well, we only got through verse 5, but to me, Micah and Isaiah are both describing the millennium. No doubt in my mind about that. So we're going to, if you want to read ahead, this tower of the flock in verse 8 is, I've heard different references. Some think that's Jerusalem. You want to, Genesis 3. I'm not seeing my reference for that. I think it's Genesis 35.
Now the flock.
Yeah.
Very.
Adar. Yeah. 35. Starting in 19, it's talking about Bethlehem, Ephratah, and verse 21, it talks the tower of Adar, that is the tower of the flock. So, which is in Bethlehem, by the way. So we'll read that hopefully. And I've done, that's my Christmas story that I did earlier this year. I like it. There's so many things that are coming out now. I even Google Mapped Bethlehem, and I think I can almost put my finger on the exact place where Jesus was born, not in Bethlehem, but in the Tower of the Flock, which is about half a mile from downtown Bethlehem.
Dr. Sharp, it said Bethlehem isn't same Bethlehem that Jesus was born in.
Oh, there's more than one Bethlehem.
Yeah, there's more than one Bethlehem. But Bethlehem Ephratah is a reference to the city of Bethlehem.
It's only about 10 miles north of Jerusalem.
You know, it's 6 miles south and just a little bit west. But this, and then there's a valley that goes east of Bethlehem, and on the other side of that valley is where the Tower of the Flock is, which is just, and there's even a church there called the Church of the Flock or something like that. And that's been there a long time. So people have called it that for a long time. Well, anyway, yeah, well, it's 8:03, so we're over time. Thank you all for coming in. Let's close in prayer. Father God, we just thank you for to many voices tonight that are speaking and showing interest in your word, Father. We just are so humbled that we don't understand it all. We don't know what it all means. But Father, we just get glimpses, and we just thank you for what you do give us, and we just thank you that you love us enough to have written the book, Father, that we can trust and believe. And we just give you the praise, honor, and glory. In Jesus' name, amen.